Miss again, Sergeant Bennett, and I'm going to start wondering who signed your sniper qualification. Gunnery Sergeant Tom Walker lowered the spotting scope. 500 yards downrange, the steel target hadn't moved. Behind the rifle, Staff Sergeant Rachel Bennett remained perfectly still. No curse. No excuse. No embarrassed glance toward the Marines watching behind them. She opened the bolt, checked the chamber, then wrote 3 words in the weathered notebook beside her. Wind. Angle. Dust. That makes 6, Tom said. Someone behind him laughed. Rachel ignored it. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in courage and respect, hit like and subscribe. These stories inspire change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Rachel. Morning light stretched across the desert firing range, turning the distant limestone ridges almost white. A steady crosswind pushed dust along the ground. Rachel settled behind the rifle again. Tom watched her hand move toward the elevation turret. 1 click. Then another. He frowned. You planning on adjusting until you accidentally find the target? Rachel's blue eyes stayed behind the optic. No, the answer irritated him more than an argument would have. Tom had spent 19 years around Marines who could shoot. He knew what nervous shooters looked like. Rachel wasn't nervous. Her breathing was controlled. Shoulders relaxed. Trigger hand steady. Nothing about her looked like someone who had just missed 6 easy shots. Tom raised the spotting scope again. The steel remained clean. Then he moved farther right. There. A pale scar on the limestone behind it. Another 30 feet higher. A third near a shallow ledge. He searched until he found all 6 impact marks. Scattered. Wide. Apparently useless. Yet something felt wrong. Those are your impacts. Rachel closed her notebook. You've been watching. Hard not to. She rose and slung the rifle over her shoulder. Tom looked between her and the distant ridge. You could silence everyone here with 1 clean hit. Rachel paused. For the first time, she looked directly at him. I didn't come here to silence anyone. Then she walked toward the equipment shelters. The Marines behind Tom exchanged amused looks and followed. Tom stayed. He raised the spotting scope 1 last time. First impact. Second. Third. He traced the remaining marks. Then he remembered something. Before every shot, Rachel had changed her elevation. Not after missing. Before firing. 6 misses. 6 different points. 6 deliberate adjustments. Tom slowly lowered the scope. Rachel Bennett hadn't been trying to hit the steel. And whatever she had actually been shooting at was somewhere beyond it. By lunchtime, everyone on the base had heard about Rachel Bennett. 6 shots. 6 misses. The story traveled faster than she did. Near the vehicle bay, 2 Marines stopped talking when Rachel passed. Another glanced at the sniper case in her hand and smirked. Careful, he said. Targets might be safer if you leave that thing closed. A few men laughed. Rachel kept walking. Tom Walker watched from beside a Humvee, expecting anger. Nothing. No sharp reply. No attempt to defend herself. That bothered him more than the joke. An hour later, he found Rachel beneath a canvas awning near the equipment shelters. Her rifle lay across a workbench while she cleaned dust from the action with slow, practiced movements. Tom leaned against a support post. You know they're talking about you. I have ears. You don't seem concerned. Rachel inspected the optic mount. Should I be? Tom stepped closer. You could shut everyone up with 1 shot. Her hand stopped for half a second. Then continued. That's not why I'm here. Tom studied her. Everything about the woman contradicted what he'd seen at the range. She handled the rifle without wasted movement. Every component returned to its exact place. Even the ammunition beside her had been arranged with deliberate precision. "You're not a bad shooter." Rachel said nothing. "You knew where those rounds were going." Still nothing. Tom's eyes moved to the weathered notebook beside her rifle. 6 lines filled the open page. Wind direction. Elevation. Dust behavior. Small sketches of limestone formations. No scores. No target measurements. "What are you doing?" Rachel closed the notebook. "Working. On what?" She looked toward him. "You ask a lot of questions. I have 417 reasons to." That changed something in her expression. "Tomorrow's convoy." For the first time, Tom saw concern behind the calm. He lowered his voice. "You could end all the rumors right now. Put 1 round through the center of that steel and nobody questions you again." Rachel lifted the notebook. "That's exactly why I won't." Tom frowned. "Why?" She looked toward the distant mountains beyond the eastern perimeter. "Because I don't need them watching the right place yet." Tom followed her gaze. Carson Pass lay somewhere beyond those ridges. "What right place?" Rachel slipped the notebook into her pack. "You'll know when I do." She picked up her rifle case and walked away. Tom remained beneath the awning. He had approached her expecting to confirm that she was incompetent. Instead, he had confirmed something worse. Rachel Bennett could shoot. She wanted everyone to believe she couldn't. And whatever reason she had was connected to the route 417 Marines would take tomorrow. 3 more. Tom Walker was already standing behind the firing line when Rachel Bennett arrived before sunrise. She said nothing. She placed her weathered notebook beside the rifle, settled into position, and studied the limestone ridge beyond the steel target. Tom raised his spotting scope. "You know everyone's counting now." Rachel adjusted the elevation turret. "So am I." The rifle cracked. The steel remained untouched. Dust lifted from a shallow ledge beyond it. Tom didn't look at the target. Not this time. He watched the dust. The morning crosswind caught it and carried it right. Rachel wrote something down. "Second shot." Another miss. The impact landed lower, where darker limestone met loose gravel. The dust behaved differently, heavier, shorter, settling almost immediately. Rachel recorded that too. Tom's jaw tightened. Then the wind shifted. Barely. The range flag hadn't reacted yet, but Rachel adjusted before firing. Third shot. Dust burst from the ridge and drifted left. 9 shots. 9 misses. Rachel lowered the rifle. Tom lowered his scope. "I saw it." She glanced at him. "The wind? The pattern?" Rachel closed the bolt but didn't chamber another round. Tom walked closer. "You changed every impact point on purpose. Different elevation. Different surface. Different wind. Silence. What are you measuring?" Rachel opened the notebook. For once, she didn't immediately close it when he looked. 9 entries filled 2 pages. Angles. Wind direction. Surface notes. Dust movement. Beside them were small sketches copied from reconnaissance photographs. Tom recognized the terrain. Carson Pass. His expression changed. "This is tomorrow's route." Rachel looked toward the mountains. "Yes." Tom felt the morning suddenly become colder. "What does shooting limestone here tell you about Carson Pass?" "Not enough by itself." "Then what?" Rachel pointed toward the newest impact. The disturbed gravel looked obvious now because they had watched the bullet strike it. But 10 minutes later, Tom realized, someone arriving afterward might see only ordinary ground. Rachel spoke quietly. I wanted to know what disturbed terrain looks like after it starts settling. Tom stared through the scope again. Wind moved the remaining dust. What are you expecting to find? Nothing. He looked at her. Rachel's eyes stayed on the distant ridge. That's what worries me. Tom waited. She finally continued. Reconnaissance shows places that look untouched. And some of them look too untouched. Tom's grip tightened around the spotting scope. You think somebody altered the terrain? I think somebody may want us to believe they didn't. The word settled between them. No accusation. No dramatic certainty. Just possibility. Tom looked toward Carson Pass. Tomorrow, 417 Marines would travel through those mountains. What happens if you're right? Rachel picked up the notebook. We don't let them reach the place where being right matters. She started toward the equipment shelters. Tom called after her. So that's why you missed 9 shots. Rachel stopped. For a moment, the only sound was wind crossing the empty range. Then she looked back. You keep calling them misses. She walked away. Tom raised the spotting scope. Again. This time, he never looked at the steel target at all. 417 Marines go through Carson Pass tomorrow, Colonel David Mitchell said. Every decision in this room needs to remember that number. The operations tent went quiet. Red tactical lights washed over a laminated terrain map spread across the central table. 23 vehicle markers formed 3 convoy elements along a narrow route between steep limestone ridges. Tom Walker stood near the front. Rachel Bennett remained at the far side of the table, arms relaxed, expression unreadable. Mitchell pointed to the route. Departure, 0430. Primary movement through Carson Pass. Convoy spacing stays disciplined until the corridor opens south. His finger moved toward the northern high ground. Primary overwatch, Staff Sergeant Bennett. Several Marines glanced toward Rachel. Tom didn't. Sir. Mitchell looked at him. I have a concern. I assumed you might. Tom placed both hands on the table. 9 rounds in 2 mornings. 9 misses. And tomorrow she's watching 417 Marines. Rachel didn't react. Mitchell studied Tom for a moment. Did you watch where those rounds landed? Tom hesitated. Yes, sir. Good. Then you're ahead of where you were yesterday. A few heads turned. Mitchell tapped several pencil circles marked along Carson Pass. These were identified during review of reconnaissance imagery. Minor terrain inconsistencies. Nothing independently confirms hostile activity. Tom looked at Rachel. Her findings. Her questions, Mitchell corrected. That distinction mattered. No verified positions, Mitchell continued. No confirmed obstruction. No intelligence sufficient to cancel the movement. Then why Bennett? Because she's the one who noticed them. Tom looked down at the circles. A displaced patch of vegetation. An unusual difference in surface coloration. A section of loose limestone that appeared slightly different between 2 reconnaissance passes. Small things. Things most people would dismiss. What exactly does she think is there? Mitchell looked toward Rachel. She answered. I don't know. Tom frowned. You've spent 2 mornings deliberately missing targets because you don't know. I spent 2 mornings learning what similar terrain looks like after it's disturbed. The room became still. Rachel pointed toward one circled section. Recon says this area is untouched. And you disagree? I think someone may want it to look untouched. Tom stared at the map. You think someone's waiting for us? Rachel met his eyes. I think someone worked very hard to make it look like nobody is. No one laughed. Mitchell resumed the briefing. Backup frequencies. Medical contingencies. Vehicle intervals. An old Western maintenance route appeared on the map beyond marker 7, marked unverified. Do not use this route unless directed, Mitchell said. Recon couldn't confirm the entire passage remains open. Rachel studied it longer than anyone else. Hours later, darkness still covered the base when 23 engines came alive. Tom climbed into the lead convoy element and checked his radio. Bennett, radio check. Her voice returned immediately. Loud and clear. From high ground east of the route, Rachel settled behind her optic. The first vehicles rolled through the gate. Then the next. 417 Marines moved toward the mountains. Tom watched Carson Pass grow larger through the windshield. Rachel. Go. You see anything? She scanned the black ridgelines. Nothing moved. Nothing flashed. Nothing looked wrong. That bothered her most. Not yet. The convoy entered the mouth of the pass. Rachel opened her notebook beside the rifle. 9 entries waited beneath the red glow of her covered light. Wind. Angle. Dust. Then she looked toward the silent valley ahead. This time, there would be no steel target telling anyone where to look. Tom, slow the convoy. Rachel Bennett's voice came through the radio just as morning light began spilling across Carson Pass. Tom Walker looked through the windshield. Nothing. No vehicles. No people. No movement on the ridges. 23 military vehicles stretched behind him, their tires raising pale dust from the narrow road. Reason? High above the pass, Rachel lay behind her optic on a limestone shelf. Something's wrong. Tom scanned the road. That's specific. Reduce speed. Maintain spacing. Tom hesitated only a second. All elements, reduce speed. The convoy slowed. Rachel kept searching. The valley looked exactly as reconnaissance said it should. Almost. She lowered the optic and opened her notebook. 9 deliberate shots. 9 observations. Wind. Angle. Dust. She looked back toward the eastern ridge. A thin plume rose beneath a rock shelf. The morning wind was moving south. The dust drifted north. Rachel stopped breathing for a moment. Tom. I'm here. How much local traffic have you passed? He looked toward the road behind them. None. No civilian vehicles. Any animals? Tom frowned. No, Rachel swept the valley again. Nothing moved. That was the problem. A mountain corridor didn't become lifeless because Marines entered it. Birds should have lifted from the rocks. Dust should have followed the wind. Something should have moved naturally. Instead, Carson Pass looked staged. Too clean. Too still. Rachel shifted her optic toward a patch of vegetation near the eastern slope. She remembered the reconnaissance photograph. The brush had been beside a narrow crack in the limestone. Now it covered it. Only a few feet of difference. Enough. Her pulse remained steady. Then sunlight touched something beneath the ridge. A flash. Gone. Glass. Maybe binoculars. Maybe an optic. Maybe nothing. Rachel didn't guess. Not yet. Hold the convoy. Tom's expression hardened. Rachel? Stop all 23. He reached for the radio. All elements, halt. Maintain intervals. Brakes hissed. Engines dropped to idle. The lead vehicle stopped before the corridor narrowed around marker 7. Rachel searched again. The thin dust plume returned. Then another appeared farther north. A third rose beneath an overhang. Separate locations. Same wrong drift. Tom stepped from his vehicle and raised binoculars. I still don't see anyone. Don't look for people. What am I looking for? What they changed. Tom studied the ridge. At first, only stone. Then he saw it. A dark patch beneath a pale ledge. Loose gravel beside it. Freshly disturbed. His jaw tightened. Rachel. I see it. A shadow moved behind the rocks. Just once. Human height. Then disappeared. Tom lowered himself beside the vehicle. The Marines behind him sensed the change and became quiet. No jokes. No questions. Rachel's optic moved higher. Another tiny reflection. Then movement near the vegetation she'd noticed earlier. Evidence began connecting. Not one clue. 5. 10. Enough. What do you see? Tom asked. Rachel's eyes stayed against the glass. Not enough. Another figure shifted between two rocks. This time Tom saw it too. Rachel closed her notebook. Now I do. Tom stared at the narrowing road ahead. How far are we from the center of the pass? Far enough. For what? Rachel looked across the ridgeline. Dust lifted from several concealed positions almost simultaneously. The valley was waking up. But not naturally. To stop before they wanted us to. Tom's face changed. He understood. 417 Marines had been moving toward the exact place someone expected them to reach. Rachel's voice came through the radio again. Calm. Precise. Get everyone against the western wall. Tom grabbed his handset. All elements, move west. Stay tight. As the convoy shifted, Rachel saw the first concealed silhouette rise above the eastern ridge. Then another. Carson Pass had never been empty. It had only been waiting. Don't look for them, Tom. Look for what they touched. Tom Walker pressed himself against the western side of the lead vehicle and raised his binoculars. At first, Carson Pass was still nothing but limestone and shadow. Then he stopped searching for faces. A dark patch beneath an eastern ledge. Loose gravel below it. Brush angled differently from everything around it. Tom's expression changed. I see one. Rachel Bennett swept her optic farther north. No. You see a position. Another disturbance appeared beneath an overhang. Then another. Tom counted. 3. 5. 7. He stopped. How many? Enough. The convoy had halted before reaching the deepest section of the corridor. 23 vehicles now hugged the western wall, engines idling beneath the morning heat. 417 Marines waited. Rachel opened her notebook. 9 deliberate shots had never been a map of enemy positions. They had taught her something simpler. What recently disturbed limestone looked like after dust began settling. How loose gravel behaved under crosswind. How shadow changed around displaced stone. Now those observations joined everything else. The missing traffic. The unnatural silence. The moved vegetation. The flashes of glass. The shadows. Together, they formed evidence. Tom looked through his binoculars again. So that's what the 9 shots were for. Part of it. You were training your eyes. I was checking a suspicion. Movement flickered above the eastern ridge. A concealed figure shifted behind rock. Then another moved farther south. Rachel's voice sharpened. They're repositioning. Because we stopped. Yes. Tom looked toward marker 7. The narrowest section lay ahead. If the convoy had continued another few minutes, most of the vehicles would have been inside it. His jaw tightened. You stopped us before the center. For now. Static rolled through the radio. A communications marine broke in. Primary channel is getting interference. Tom reached for his handset. Switch to backup. Maintain relay between convoy elements. Copy. A sharp crack echoed across the valley. Dust jumped from the road 50 yards ahead. Marines dropped behind cover. Another shot struck limestone on the opposite side. Tom stared upward. They started. Too early, Rachel said. What? They weren't ready. She watched two figures rush from one concealed position toward another. The convoy's unexpected halt had forced the trap to change. Positions designed to remain hidden were moving. Movement created dust. Dust created signatures. And Rachel was watching all of them. More scattered shots echoed. Not synchronized. Not yet. Tom lowered himself beside the vehicle. What do you need? Rachel paused. 2 days ago, he had questioned whether she belonged behind a rifle. Now there was no challenge in his voice. Only trust. Keep everyone where they are. We can't stay exposed. I know. Her optic moved toward the highest ridge. Someone was organizing this. Someone had expected 23 vehicles to reach marker 7 before giving the signal. Find the pattern. A figure appeared briefly beside a narrow rock opening. Radio in hand. He looked uphill before disappearing again. Rachel followed his line of sight. Higher. Nothing. Then she noticed the western side of the pass. Beyond marker 7, partially hidden behind a limestone shoulder, lay the entrance to the old maintenance route from Mitchell's map. Unverified. From above, Rachel could see farther into it than reconnaissance had. The entrance was open. The first section was clear. Maybe enough. Tom. Go. Remember the western maintenance route? The one nobody confirmed? Yes. You want 417 Marines on an unverified road? Not yet. Tom heard the distinction. Another burst of scattered fire echoed from the ridge. Rachel returned to her optic. The enemy had lost its perfect timing. But it was rebuilding it. Somewhere above them, someone was about to bring the pieces back together. Rachel searched the highest ridge. Then what are we waiting for? Tom asked. Her eye stopped on a distant shadow. For the person they're waiting for. They're changing the trap. Rachel Bennett watched two concealed figures abandon the eastern ridge and move lower through the rocks. Tom Walker pressed the radio closer. Because we stopped. Because we're not where they planned for us to be. Another shot cracked across Carson Pass. It struck limestone ahead of the convoy. A second came from farther north. Too far apart. Too early. Rachel tracked the movement through her optic. The ambush had been built around timing. 23 vehicles were supposed to enter the narrow corridor, compressed near marker 7, and leave 417 Marines with fewer choices. That moment had never arrived. Now the hidden teams were improvising. And improvisation left traces. Dust. Movement. Mistakes. Primary channel is degrading, a voice reported. Tom answered immediately. Stay on backup. Relay through each element. He looked toward the western wall. Rachel, we can't hold here forever. I know. Can we reverse? Rear positions are moving. Forward. That's what they want. Tom exhaled. 2 days earlier, he would have challenged every answer. Now he simply asked, what do you need? Rachel's optic stopped on a figure carrying a radio beneath a high ledge. There. Her breathing slowed. The man looked toward several positions below him. Then uphill. Rachel followed his gaze. Nothing. The radio carrier wasn't controlling the ambush. He was waiting for someone who was. Another scattered burst echoed across the valley. Dust kicked up near a vehicle. Marines stayed behind cover. Rachel shifted west. Marker 7 stood near the bend ahead. Beyond it, hidden from the convoy by a limestone shoulder, was the old maintenance route from Mitchell's briefing. Unverified. From Rachel's elevation, she could see the entrance. Open. The first stretch curved behind the western ridge. Clear enough to get the convoy out of the exposed corridor. After that, uncertainty. But uncertainty was better than a trap. Tom. Go. When I give the word, move the lead element toward marker 7. You said forward completes the trap. For 20 seconds. And then. Hard west. Maintenance route. Tom looked toward what appeared from below to be solid rock. You can see it? Yes. All the way through? No, the answer came without hesitation. Tom appreciated that more than false certainty. How much can you confirm? Enough to get everyone behind the western ridge. Another shot struck the road. Time was shrinking. Tom keyed his radio. All drivers, engines ready. Hold for my command. 23 engines rose together. Across the eastern ridge, concealed figures reacted. Rachel saw 3 of them shift immediately. They heard us. Good or bad? Useful. Their movement exposed more positions. Then the radio carrier appeared again. He looked uphill. This time, someone answered. A figure stepped onto the highest ridge between 2 limestone formations. Only briefly. No frantic movement. No searching. He surveyed the positions below before raising one hand. The radio carrier immediately turned toward him. Rachel went still. Pattern. Response. Control. I found him. Tom looked upward. The coordinator. Yes. Can you take the shot? Rachel settled behind the rifle. The angle was narrow. Crosswind moved unpredictably over the ridge. The figure stepped backward and disappeared. No, Tom heard more scattered fire. How long? Rachel kept watching the opening. I don't know. We may not have that. I know. She adjusted the optic. Wind. Angle. Distance. The same patience everyone had mistaken for incompetence at the firing range returned. Tom looked at the Marines around him. Then at marker 7. Rachel. I'm here. Tell me when. The coordinator's shadow appeared again. Rachel's finger rested outside the trigger guard. Not yet. The ambush was trying to recover its timing. She needed to take it away one last time. Then the figure stepped forward. Rachel's breathing slowed. Start your engines, Tom. They're already running. Good. She watched the coordinator raise his hand. Because when you hear my rifle, you move. The rifle cracked. Tom Walker moved before the echo reached the opposite ridge. Go. 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 The lead vehicle surged toward marker 7. 22 engines followed. Dust exploded beneath heavy tires as the convoy accelerated into the narrow section of Carson Pass. High above, Rachel Bennett stayed behind her optic. The coordinator had disappeared from the opening. His raised hand never completed the signal. For 3 seconds, the ridges seemed frozen. Then scattered fire erupted. Too early. Different angles. Different timing. Exactly what Rachel needed. Keep moving, Tom. We're moving. The first vehicle passed marker 7. From ground level, the western side still looked like solid limestone. Where is it? 20 yards. Hard west behind the shoulder. Tom leaned toward the driver. 20 yards. The vehicle pushed forward. 10. 5. Then the rock face opened. A narrow maintenance route appeared behind the limestone shoulder. West. Now. The driver turned sharply. The lead vehicle disappeared behind the ridge. Second followed. Then third. Rachel counted through the scope. 4. 6. 9. Gunfire echoed across the pass, but the ambush no longer behaved like one coordinated attack. Some concealed teams fired toward the old road. Others repositioned. Several had lost sightlines completely as the convoy turned behind the western ridge. Dust filled the corridor. "Backup channel holding," a Marine reported. Tom grabbed the handset. "Every element follows the lead. No stops. Keep spacing." Rachel shifted her optic toward the maintenance route. She could confirm only the first stretch. That was all she had promised. The road curved deeper behind the ridge. The lead vehicle disappeared from her view. A moment later Tom's voice returned. "Route continues. Narrow, but clear." Rachel exhaled once. "Keep them moving." 11 vehicles. 14. 17. A sharp impact struck stone near the 18th. The vehicle continued. 19. 20. Rachel searched the eastern ridge again. Without the coordinator, the concealed teams were trying to rebuild communication. The radio carrier she had identified earlier appeared from behind a ledge, signaling urgently toward the lower positions. Rachel didn't fire. She didn't need to. The decisive shot had never been about defeating everyone on the ridge. It had been about buying time. 21. 22. The final vehicle approached marker 7. Tom's voice came through. "Last element, move." The vehicle turned west. 23. Rachel watched it vanish behind limestone. All vehicles clear of the corridor. Tom didn't celebrate. Accountability. Reports began arriving. First element. Accounted for. Second element. Accounted for. The second stretched. Rachel remained behind her rifle, watching the ridge in case anyone attempted to follow. Then the final transmission came. All elements accounted for. 417 Marines. Tom closed his eyes for half a second. 417 had entered Carson Pass. 417 were leaving it. Rachel. Go. How much time did that shot buy us? She looked toward the empty opening where the coordinator had stood. Maybe 30 seconds. Tom glanced at the convoy moving through the maintenance route. 30 seconds. That was all. Not a miracle. Not a battle won by one bullet. Just enough confusion for 23 vehicles to disappear behind the western ridge before the trap could recover. Rachel finally lifted her cheek from the rifle. Beside her lay the weathered notebook. 9 deliberate misses. Wind. Angle. Dust. Everyone at the firing range had watched the steel. Rachel had been watching everything beyond it. She closed the notebook. "Tom, continue south until you're clear of the pass." "What about you?" Rachel began packing her equipment. "I'm leaving." A pause. Then Tom's voice softened. "Good shot, Bennett." Rachel looked once more across Carson Pass. No, she slipped the notebook into her pack. "Good timing." "So how many shots did you actually miss?" Rachel Bennett stopped cleaning her rifle. Tom Walker stood at the edge of the firing line, holding her weathered notebook. 24 hours had passed since Carson Pass. The base had returned to its familiar rhythm. Engines turned over in the vehicle bay. Mechanics inspected dust-covered equipment. Radios crackled from open doors. 417 Marines had returned. Rachel had received no dramatic welcome. She preferred it that way. She had finished the debriefing, checked her equipment, filed her report, and come back to the same range where everyone had watched her fail. Tom walked closer and placed the notebook beside her. "You read it," Rachel said. "Every page. 9 entries. 9 shots. Wind. Angle. Dust. Terrain." Tom looked toward the steel target 500 yards away. Still untouched. The limestone behind it carried 9 pale impact scars. "I thought you were proving you couldn't shoot." Rachel returned the cleaning cloth to her kit. "I wasn't proving anything. You let us think you were. I let you think what you wanted." Tom accepted that. 2 days earlier, he would have argued. Now he understood how much noise people created when they were desperate to be right. "You could have explained. Before I had evidence. You had suspicions." "Exactly." Rachel closed the rifle case. Tom looked at the notebook. "So the misses weren't some trick that showed you exactly where the ambush was?" "No, they taught you what to notice." "Partly. The rest?" "Recon imagery. Terrain changes. Missing traffic. Glass reflection. Movement." Tom nodded slowly. One clue had meant nothing. Together, they had saved time. And time had saved people. He looked toward Carson Pass beyond the distant mountains. 30 seconds. Rachel followed his gaze. Maybe less. That was enough. It had to be. Tom was quiet for a moment. Then he held out the spotting scope. Rachel looked at it. "What?" "Teach me." A faint smile touched her face. "That could take a while. I've been wrong for longer." That earned him a look. Not forgiveness. Not victory. Something simpler. Respect returned honestly. Tom set the spotting scope on the bench. "I told Mitchell you shouldn't have been assigned Overwatch." "I know. I thought your missus made you dangerous." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "And now?" Tom looked toward the steel. "Now I think I was looking at the wrong thing." Rachel handed him the scope. Tom raised it. The steel target filled his view. Clean. Centered. Obvious. Then he remembered Carson Pass. The dust moving against the wind. The displaced brush. The shadows that became positions. The position that became a trap. He moved the scope past the target. Toward the limestone. 9 pale scars appeared. Tom lowered it. "One more question." Rachel waited. "Did you mean to miss everyone?" "I meant to hit what I needed." "And the shot in Carson Pass?" Rachel looked toward the distant ridge. "That one mattered." Tom smiled slightly. "So I'll ask again." Rachel already knew the question. "How many shots did you miss?" She picked up her rifle case. "The ones that mattered?" She paused. "None." Rachel walked away from the firing line. Tom remained behind. He raised the spotting scope one last time. For 2 days, everyone had judged Rachel Bennett by a steel target she never intended to hit. She never demanded their respect. She simply waited until her judgment mattered more than their opinions. Tom centered the steel in his scope. Then deliberately moved past it. This time, he looked beyond the target.